Have you ever felt that intense, focused energy right before a big deadline? Or maybe a presentation?
Yeah, buzz.
That exhilarating push that helps you perform? Or flip side, maybe that heavy, just draining weight of constant worries that never seem to let up?
Definitely. Two very different feelings.
Exactly. And both those experiences, we often just bundle them together and call it stress. But, well, that single word hides a really fascinating, complex scientific reality. It's often misunderstood.
Hmm.
So today we're doing a deep dive into the science of stress, specifically looking at it through the revolutionary work of a scientist named Hans Selye.
Right. And our mission for you today is really to unpack Selye's key discoveries, how he figured out well, surprising biological mechanics behind your body's response to demands.
Okay.
And crucially, how he drew a clear line between good stress, which he called eustress, and bad stress, or distress.
Eustress and distress. Okay.
Yeah, and this distinction, it isn't just academic theory. It's actually profoundly relevant to your daily well-being, how you navigate, the modern world.
Right.
And just as you know, our discussion, it's rooted directly in Selye's original papers, historical analyses, his own books. We're trying to give you a shortcut to really understanding this vital topic.
Okay, fantastic. Let's unpack this then. It sounds like quite a journey from lab experiments back then to really life-changing insights about how your body responds to, well, everything.
Exactly.
So where does it start? You mentioned lab experiments.
Yeah, so picture this. You're stepping into a lab, maybe in the 1930s, with a young Hans Selye. This is where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
He was doing experiments mostly with rats and subjecting them to all sorts of, harsh conditions.
Like what kinds of conditions?
Think extreme cold, intense heat, different toxins, even things like surgery. Really diverse, nasty stuff.
Wow.
But here's the kicker. What he observed consistently was kind of mind-boggling at the time. No matter what specific stressor he used, whether it was physical, chemical, environmental, he kept seeing the exact same biological triad of responses.
The same three things every time.
Pretty much. Their adrenal glands, the ones that pump out adrenaline, they got
Yeah.
enlarged.
Okay.
Their thymus and lymph tissues, these are crucial parts of the immune system. They dramatically shrunk.
Immune system hit.
Yeah. And third, they developed stomach and duodenal ulcers.
Ulcers. Right, so bigger adrenals, smaller thymus, and ulcers, regardless of the cause.
Exactly. That was the revolutionary part. It showed the body has this universal, nonspecific internal alarm system. It doesn't really care what the threat is. It just reacts in this general way. He published this in Nature in 1936.
A general adaptation response?
Precisely. And that consistent pattern became what Selye later formalized into his three-stage model. You've probably heard of it, the General Adaptation Syndrome, or GAS.
GAS, right. Alarm resistance.
Exhaustion. Exactly.
Yeah.
So GAS explains why, a short burst of stress can actually be helpful, adaptive even. But if it goes on too long, that's when your body's defenses get worn down.
So walk us through those stages quickly. Alarm is?
Alarm is the initial shock. Your body's immediate fight or flight kicking in when it perceives a threat. Heart races, senses sharpen, that kind of thing.
Got it. Then resistance.
Resistance is where the body tries to adapt. It's coping with the ongoing stressor, trying to get back to some kind of balance or homeostasis, but it's burning energy to do this.
Okay, so it's managing, but it takes effort.
Right. And if that stressor doesn't let up, if it's prolonged and unrelenting, you hit the final stage, exhaustion.
And that sounds bad.
It is. That's where your body's energy reserves are depleted. Its defenses wear down. It can lead to breakdown, illness. Essentially, the system gets overwhelmed.
It's fascinating how those rat experiments revealed such a, universal biological pattern. But how did we get from general adaptation response to the word stress that we all use constantly today? That seems like a big leap.
It was a brilliant conceptual leap, actually. Selye didn't invent the word stress. He borrowed it.
Borrowed it? From where?
From engineering. Physics, actually, where stress refers to the internal forces within a material when an external force or strain is applied.
Ah, okay, like pressure on a bridge.
Kind of. But Selye cleverly flipped it. He reconceptualized stress, not as the external force, but as the body's internal, non-specific response to any demand placed upon it.
So the demand is the strain and the body's reaction is the stress.
Exactly. He made that distinction really clear later on. The stressor is the trigger, the deadline, the cold, the argument, whatever it is. And stress itself is the body's internal universal reaction to that stressor.
That clarification seems really important.
It was foundational, and it allowed him later, especially in his more popular books, to introduce those crucial concepts we mentioned: distress for the harmful kind of stress, and eustress for the beneficial positive kind.
Right, the good versus the bad. And you know what's really amazing, and maybe not everyone realizes this, is that so much of this foundational work, what the whole world now understands as stress science, was actually built right here in Canada.
Absolutely, it's a significant Canadian contribution to global health science. After his early years at McGill University here in Montreal, Selye founded and then led the Institute of Experimental Medicine and Surgery at the Université de Montréal.
Also in Montreal.
Yes, he directed that institute from 1945 all the way to 1977. And it wasn't just an institute, it became the World Center for Stress Research during that time.
Wow, a world center right here.
For decades. This Montreal-based institute was really the engine room where modern stress science was forged and took shape.
And what's also key, I think, is that he didn't just keep this science locked away in labs or academic journals.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Selye was actually a master communicator. He took his complex science and made it accessible to the public.
Through his books.
Yes, his best-selling books were huge. The Stress of Life, which came out in 1956, and then Stress Without Distress in 1974. These books genuinely shaped how doctors, teachers, managers, and just everyday people started talking about and understanding stress. He put the concepts into plain language.
That's a huge part of his legacy, making it usable knowledge.
Definitely. Yeah, and his contributions were recognized here in Canada, too.
Yeah.
He was made a Companion of the Order of Canada, which is, our country's highest civilian honor, specifically for his groundbreaking theory of stress.
That's fantastic.
And his legacy, it's not just historical, it's ongoing. He helped seed numerous institutes for stress research and education around the world, and you can still see his influence clearly across medicine, psychology, public health, even in how companies think about workplace well-being today.
That's a genuine point of national pride, isn't it? So Selye's journey from those early lab puzzles to these huge, life-changing ideas, it really transformed how we think. But let's bring it back to the listener. What's the so what's for you today? How does this affect how we understand our own bodies and minds right now?
Well, I think Selye's absolute key insight, the real game changer, was showing that whether a challenge you face is purely physical, like running a marathon, or deeply psychological, like dealing with grief, or maybe intensely social, like a conflict at work, your body often speaks through a shared kind of neuroendocrine dialect.
A shared language inside the body?
Pretty much. It involves specific interconnected systems. There's the sympathetic nervous system that's your body's immediate gas pedal, the rapid fight or flight response.
Right, the adrenaline rush.
Exactly. And then there's the HPA axis that stands for hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. This is a bit slower, but it releases hormones like cortisol for a more sustained energy mobilization, helping the body cope over a slightly longer term.
Okay, so two main systems involved.
Yes. And Selye showed really conclusively that chronic activation of these systems, keeping that gas pedal floored, basically depletes the body's resources. It wears things out and significantly predisposes us to a whole range of diseases. That was his crucial move. Separating the cause, the stressor, from the response, the body's internal stress reaction, and showing the danger of that response going on for too long.
And this is where it gets really practical for everyday life, because he didn't just say stress is bad. He showed us that not all stress is inherently bad, right? That later emphasis on eustress versus distress.
Exactly. Eustress being the positive, maybe even growth-producing side of arousal, the kind that motivates you, sharpens you, versus distress, which is the damaging, overwhelming kind that we typically, complain about.
And you can see that distinction everywhere now, can't you?
Oh, absolutely. That fundamental framing, good stress versus bad stress, it underpins so much in modern society. Think about resilience training programs.
Yeah, building coping skills. Exactly. Or performance psychology in sports or business, trying to get athletes or executives into that optimal arousal zone, which is essentially eustress.
Right, finding that sweet spot.
And even many public health messages about managing stress, encouraging exercise, mindfulness, social connection, they're all aimed at mitigating distress and sometimes even cultivating eustress. Meditation techniques, goal-setting strategies. In a way, they all connect back to Selye's basic distinction.
It's interesting that even though science has obviously advanced hugely since the 30s and 50s, his original model, the GAS model and the eustress distress idea, it still seems to be the go-to framework for explaining this stuff.
It really is. For clinicians, mental health professionals, educators, It remains that everyday scaffold they use. It's just such a clear way to explain the difference between, say, an acute stress response, which can be fine, even helpful, versus chronic stress, which leads towards burnout. It helps explain coping mechanisms, why some work and others don't, and what happens when coping fails. It's still incredibly relevant because it provides that accessible framework. Okay, so we've touched on this crucial distinction a few times. Let's really zoom in now on the good side eustress. It still feels a bit counterintuitive, maybe, to call stress good. How does it work? Like a workout for the mind and body, you said.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. Think about eustress. The term itself comes from the Greek prefix eu, meaning good or well. So good stress.
Right.
And its characteristics are really distinct from distress. First, it's generally short-term, time-limited. It doesn't go on forever.
Okay, temporary.
Second, and this is crucial, you perceive it as being within your coping abilities. You feel challenged, yes, but not overwhelmed. You feel like you can handle it.
That perception piece sounds key.
It absolutely is. And because of that perception, it doesn't paralyze you. Instead, it motivates action, it sharpens your focus, and it can genuinely drive personal growth and learning. It's that feeling of being stretched, but knowing you won't snap.
I think most people can relate to that. You can probably think of examples in your own life, right? Like that pre-race adrenaline we mentioned. It sharpens an athlete's focus, gets them in the zone.
Perfect example.
Or maybe a student feeling, energized and really keyed in just before an important exam, ready to perform. Or even bigger things, like the challenging but also exciting feeling of starting a new job or moving to a new city, maybe tackling a complex project you care about. It's that kind of pressure that can actually bring out your best.
Precisely. And biologically, this eustress provides tangible benefits. It boosts alertness. It enhances learning capacity. You actually absorb information better under moderate short-term stress.
Interesting.
And, maybe surprisingly, in the short run, it can even give your immune system a little boost. Small, controlled bursts of cortisol can actually prime the immune system, make it more ready for action.
Huh. So not always suppressing it.
Not in the short term, no.
Yeah.
And maybe most importantly, eustress encourages adaptation and resilience.
Yeah.
Just like exercise stresses your muscles to make them stronger over time.
Right, the workout analogy again.
Exactly. Repeated, manageable challenges,
Yeah.
episodes of eustress, can actually make us mentally and emotionally tougher. It's like building psychological muscle. And again, what's truly fascinating is how much our perception dictates the outcome. Is this challenge a threat? Or is it an opportunity to grow? That framing makes all the difference.
Okay, that makes sense for eustress. Now, let's flip the coin. Let's talk about the bad side to stress. This is probably what most people really mean when they say, ugh, I'm so stressed. This is where the real prolonged harm can happen.
Absolutely. Distress is the other side of that coin. Its characteristics are pretty much the opposite of eustress. It tends to be chronic, ongoing, or intensely overwhelming, even if it's short.
Okay, long-term or just too much?
And crucially, it's consistently perceived as being beyond your coping abilities. You feel like you can't handle it. There's a sense of losing control.
That feeling of helplessness?
Exactly. And that leads to feelings of anxiety, profound fatigue, irritability, difficulty concentrating. And if it persists, it ultimately leads towards breakdown mentally, emotionally, and physically. It's the feeling of being crushed, not challenged.
And the examples here feel heavier, more insidious maybe, like the relentless demands of long-term caregiving, especially without enough support.
A classic example of chronic distress.
Or constant financial strain, that worry that just grinds you down day after day.
Or workplace overload, maybe a toxic work environment where you feel trapped without sufficient rest, recovery, or control. These are the stressors that don't just stretch you, they actively wear you down.
And biologically, the harm here is significant, right? This connects back to Selye's exhaustion state.
Precisely. This is the exhaustion stage in action. Remember how short bursts of cortisol could prime immunity? Well, prolonged, elevated cortisol does the opposite. It leads to immune suppression.
Making you more likely to get sick.
Yes. More susceptible to infections, colds, flu, and it also slows down healing processes.
Yeah.
Wounds take longer to heal. Recovery from illness is slower.
Okay, immune system down. What else?
Significant cardiovascular strain. Chronic distress contributes to high blood pressure, inflammation in the arteries, and significantly increases the risk of heart disease and stroke over time.
Serious stuff.
Very. And it impacts the brain too.
Oh.
Chronic stress can actually shrink neurons, particularly in the hippocampus, an area vital for memory formation and emotional regulation.
That's brain cells.
It can damage them and
Right.
reduce their connections, which affects memory, your ability to learn, your mood, even your cognitive flexibility,
Right.
your ability to adapt your thinking.
Wow. And metabolism.
Wide-ranging metabolic effects too. Chronic stress contributes to insulin resistance, which is linked to type 2 diabetes. It can affect appetite regulation, leading to weight gain, particularly abdominal fat. And it messes with digestion, contributing to things like IBS or exacerbating existing digestive disorders. It really is systemic wear and tear.
Yeah.
This is where the body's adaptation energy, as Selye put it, simply runs out.
So it's crystal clear this isn't just, interesting history or some biological details. This whole good versus bad stress distinction, eustress versus distress, it has really profound, immediate implications for your daily life, your health, your well-being, how you approach things.
Absolutely. Think about our everyday language. We casually say, I'm stressed all the time, and usually we mean distress, that negative, overwhelming feeling.
Nobody says, I'm feeling so eustressed today.
Exactly. But Selye really wanted us to recognize both faces of stress, the potentially beneficial side and the clearly harmful side, and crucially, to understand why they feel different and why they impact our bodies and minds so differently.
And you see this playing out everywhere today. In workplace psychology, for instance, good managers try to foster eustress, right? Healthy challenges that promote engagement, learning, innovation.
Right. While at the same time, they're hopefully working actively to identify and reduce sources of chronic distress, unreasonable workloads, lack of control, poor communication, because they know how damaging that is to both the employee and the bottom line.
Makes sense.
And similarly, in medicine and therapy, think about all the stress management interventions out there. Mindfulness practices, meditation, breathing exercises, regular physical activity, building strong social support networks.
All those things doctors recommend.
Yes, they are largely designed to do one of two things. Either help individuals turn potentially harmful distress into more manageable challenges, or even to consciously cultivate moments of eustress, like setting achievable goals. It's about managing the response.
And just recognizing eustress, that concept, it empowers you, doesn't it, to maybe reframe certain challenges. Instead of seeing every difficulty as just a threat, maybe seeing some as opportunities for growth.
That reframing is incredibly powerful, which, raises an important question for everyone listening. As you go through your day, how often do you automatically label something difficult as stress, meaning distress, when it might actually contain elements of eustress? Could it be a chance to learn, to grow, to build capacity? Just asking that question can shift your perspective.
It's a great point. Before we wrap up this deep dive, it really is worth circling back and just reiterating the incredible global impact of Hans Selye's work. So much of it developed right here in Canada. It truly reshaped things.
It really did. His dual concept of stress, eustress, and distress, it remains foundational across so many fields, worldwide, even today, decades later. His research, largely conducted in Montreal, undeniably laid the groundwork for modern stress medicine, for wellness programs, for workplace stress policies, for resilience training.
Yeah.
The list goes on. It's a powerful testament to the direct human impact of his scientific work.
Now, there's a question that often comes up when we talk about scientists who've had such a massive impact. Did Hans Selye ever win a Nobel Prize for all this?
That's a very common question, and the straightforward answer is no, he didn't.
Huh. Really? Despite everything?
Despite everything. He was nominated many times. That's documented. The Nobel archives show nominations for him in, for example, 1951 and 1953, likely others too. But he never actually received the prize.
Any idea why? Or is that just how Nobels go sometimes?
It's complex, but just for context, in 1950, the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine went to 3 researchers, Hensch, Kendall, and Reichstein. Their work was on the hormones of the adrenal cortex, identifying things like cortisone and understanding their structure and biological effects.
So, related to the adrenal glands, which Selye studied.
Exactly. Their work was certainly adjacent to Selye's insights about the adrenals and stress, but their specific focus was more on the hormone chemistry itself and its immediate clinical applications, particularly cortisone as an anti-inflammatory drug. So different emphasis, perhaps seen as more directly prize-worthy in that specific year's context.
Okay, that provides some context, but it certainly doesn't diminish his impact.
Not at all. His influence on how we understand health, illness, and adaptation remains monumental, Nobel or Nobel.
Right. So let's recap our deep dive into this world of stress. Hans Selye, this Canadian-based researcher, didn't just give us a word. He fundamentally reframed how we understand our body's response to challenges, how we think about illness, adaptation, even personal growth. And crucially, stress isn't always the enemy.
That's the core message. The key takeaway for you is that critical distinction Selye highlighted. Short-term stress, eustress, when perceived as manageable, acts like a workout for your body and mind. It builds capacity, sharpens focus, helps you adapt and grow stronger, boosting resilience.
The good stress.
The good stress. But chronic stress, distress, the kind that feels overwhelming and unrelenting, that wears you down, it damages your health over the long haul, physically and mentally, and leads towards burnout. Selye gave us the language, the scientific framework, and really the tools to recognize this critical difference. That recognition is empowering. So maybe a final thought for you to consider as you navigate the demands of your own life each day. Can you start to consciously discern which moments are potentially opportunities for eustress? Those chances to build resilience, to learn, to grow stronger, and which moments are clearly pushing you towards distress, signaling a vital need for action, for self-care, maybe for boundary setting, or even seeking support. How might simply reframing your understanding of stress, recognizing its two faces, transform your approach to the challenges and opportunities in your own life?
That's a powerful question to leave us with. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the science of stress and its profound ongoing impact on all of us.